Attending, I know it's the last session of the day, so I will do my very best to get through this quickly. I just want to start a little introduction, a little bit about myself and of the conferences I'm at, why I'm here at the Bitcoin conference. I'm a web developer of a decade. In late 2015, I started being more interested in Bitcoin than the work I was doing for my customers. And if you care about the work you're doing, that's probably not the best frame of mind that you should have when you're working for your customers. So I did the right thing. I quit my day job and I started looking at Bitcoin full time. So I was looking at Bitcoin and had an opportunity to think about what other sectors and what other industries this digital money, this transfer of assets, this ledger may potentially apply to. And a sector that was interesting is logistics. So when you move from technology to something more physical, from the world of bits and data to the world of atoms, you start to think, well, it's pretty simple, right? You're moving something from here to here, and then you go, oh, but wait, there's more complexity, and more again, and you go, this can't be necessary. So the problem is that the global supply chain is spending a lot of money just making sure its fundamentally broken pathways don't break too much. So block freight is creating a blockchain for global freight. We're creating an open, borderless, permissionless network for the free trade of physical goods. The total addressable market for block freight is 90% of all consumer goods spend some time within a shipping container. And our mission is to support 360 million containers on network by the year 2020. Our fee model is a $1 per transaction fee. What we like to call ourselves is a peer-to-peer market or a peer-to-peer platform that is also peer-to-peer. So coming back to this $1 fee and this token, block freight is built on top of Counterparty. Counterparty is built on top of Bitcoin. There is a genetic thread that runs through how block freight is built that ties it to the Bitcoin chain, and we're quite proud of that. So thinking about our network and as it's built, then what does that do? Well, the answer is all it provides is a secure store of data that all participants in the global supply chain can rely upon for trade among and between themselves. What the block freight platform, which is an open source MIT licensed code base, affords is other applications developers to build applications on top of the network which address specific challenges within supply chain and logistics. So software to assist with port operation efficiency, dispute resolution, fastest path routing, potentially and prospectively insurance markets, authenticating goods and chain of custody applications. Safety of life at sea. The mass of a container needs to be weighed so that ships don't tip. There is a health, life and safety at sea issue. And also introducing smart contracts into the ecosystem. So block freight can be seen as a general container routing protocol or a global container routing protocol, a GCRP. We're proud to announce today that Edge will be our security partner for the mobile applications that will be built out in Q1 of 2018. Our current stack is available at github.com/blockfreight. If you're a developer or in the industry, I'd encourage you to participate in our project, provide us feedback. Our technical stack is a Tendermint core with block freight application layer, containerized within Docker and deployed as a network with Kubernetes. This is our early team, and I'll open up the floor to questions. Thank you for your attendance and attention.
Okay, very brief. I've got the microphone for questions. I'm not sure if we have any right now. If not, I can start it off, but we'll go to Adam.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Adam.
Hi, Adam. How are you going?
I'm great. I used to, I work for IBM currently, and I used to work on the Walmart team. So I lived in Walmart Bentonville, Arkansas for 3.5 years.
Excellent.
And so there's a lot of, Walmart and IBM and this consortium. This is of physical goods. Are you saying that, hey, go do that with those goods, we'll do the containers, or is that competitive to that, or is it going to be consortiums, or how does that fit into that ecosystem?
So absolutely. Block Freight is seeking to establish the Block Freight Association, which will itself be seeking to work with some of the same partners that IBM is working with around Hyperledger and its supply chain logistics stack. I think that it would be fair to say that IBM's blockchain suite is the main in-market competitor to our project. And I think there are differentiators or distinguishing points between the implementation that we're building and some of the design choices that Hyperledger makes. Now, I'm not sufficiently gnostic to know which will gain broader market share, but I certainly would advocate that there are qualities around the openness and the sort of sovereignty aspects of our peer-to-peer platform that aren't directly analogous in Hyperledger. One key distinction point is actually key management, insofar as with Hyperledger, a network participant will be issued keys by one of the central servers. We don't own, operate, or maintain any key issuance. The token provides for identification. So if you hold a token, you can put a transaction into the network. We don't need to have specific knowledge about your... beyond that, we need no additional information.
Sorry, the follow-up with like a medication. So if I need my diabetes medication to be at 23 degrees, is that fall in here, or is that?
No, we see this as stratified across. I should not have used that transition effect. We see that stratified across a layer. So like OSI is a physical connection layer, and then a TCP/IP stack, and we see similarly that Block Freight is simply a base layer that gives a specific guarantee that the transaction is going to be not falsifiable and not retroactively changeable. It's dependable. So once you have a dependable data point in the process, things like I will only pay for the goods if they're delivered within certain parameters is really a smart contract. It's an IoT issue. So we're not an IoT company. CGM CMA has an equity interest in Traxons. I know IBM was working with the... No. Okay, so my cognitive database is failing me on this point, but good companies that are doing IoT to make smart containers are going to be necessary irrespective of which software stack we're looking at. There needs to be some nexus between the world of the physical and the data management layer, but that's not what our corporation, our company will expand to. It's important to also note that we're not a payments company, we're not a trade finance company, we're not an insurance company. We do no form of value routing whatsoever. We are merely a big global database for trade documents, and that's the specific and only guarantee that Block Freight now or ever will assert for its product and platform.
Who do you see as the main users or customers of this? I mean, certainly you're talking about peer-to-peer, which to me implies that there is some sort of an application that a carrier or freight forwarder or a shipper or some part in that supply chain is going to play a role. And out of all those or others, who do you see as sort of the main consumer of this blockchain directly, if that makes sense?
So interestingly, our first angel investor or corporate angel investor is a freight forwarding company. So they have a number of offices and are routing goods from China to the US, around Australia, food export from Australia to abroad, etc. So as a freight forwarder, their role is really to act on behalf of producers and consumers of goods to ensure that all of those parties that are necessary to successfully hand off the movement of the container are performing to their agreed schedule and booking, etc. So the thing is that entire enterprise of human labour is really only necessary because the system itself that is employed is broken in some pretty fundamental and concerning ways. You know that across your entire freight movement task, 1 to 3% will go out of conformance and will need direct intervention, picking up a phone, sending an email, supplementing documentation that was missing. But of 100% of containers that go through, it could be any 1 to 3% of those containers. So if we can go after the sources of data error, if we can effectively eliminate that, then without needing to have a standing army of administrators to make sure what should happen does happen, it will then become sort of this is what I want to have happen, and then have service providers vie for the opportunity to provide that service. So once upon a time we had taxis and medallions and a sort of standing system that would work in a very specific phased way, and today we have communication whereby you say, I'm here, I want to go here. Could some transport service tier, a physical car, come and pick me up and take me to there? We have people with homes who have a bed or a mattress, and you might want to visit a city at short notice and have a way to broker that. So this sort of ad hoc, on-demand, lowest path routing, fastest path routing happens when you make shipping containers routed like TCP/IP. And you don't have to pre-negotiate with routers on the internet which path your communication will take to get to a web server on the other end. It seems silly and asinine that we should have to do that with physical objects like shipping containers when we can perfectly well do it with vehicles or accommodation stock.
Quick question for me. Can you put some numbers on the various problems you talked about in the logistics system? You know, the fastest path, how much of a problem is that with your solution? How much could be saved?
So fastest path ad hoc routing does not yet exist. And it does not yet exist because the propensity is for companies that are doing large volumes to set up long-term forward contracts for guaranteed quantities of A to B. So the administrative construction and deconstruction or switching costs are quite high. The marketplace of tomorrow should be that switching costs are quite low. So just as if you're choosing one ad hoc mobility solution with one logo and another big popular solution with another logo, and often you'll find providers taking feeds of passenger requests on both platforms. A similar sort of thing should start to be seen within supply chain and logistics.
Any other questions we have?
Do you use the term point-to-point routing? Have you heard it?
What block freight does is actually distill or modernize a very old instrument, the bill of lading. So bill of lading is effectively a contract between you as a manufacturer and me as a consumer and a third party who's going to be a common carrier for the goods. At its essence, that contract is what we want to have happen, and then a carrier or set of carriers are agreeing to do it on our behalf. So that contract at the point of arrival is a redemption. It's a claim or a quasi-title to the goods in motion. So because it is a titling system, because it is a almost a bearer instrument. That's why it sort of looks a lot like Bitcoin, and why a Bitcoin structure can in fact start to perform a useful function within commerce and a more free market approach to the movement of goods.
All right, we got time for a couple more questions. Anyone else have a question? Otherwise,
So just understanding a couple things. So basically, any freight forwarder, without asking permission, could buy your tokens, use them on your network, and is that correct?
Yeah, Tim, that's correct. That's the case. Although, as I stand here on this stage, this is on YouTube. So by the time you're watching this on YouTube, yes, go to github.com/blockfreight and find links to the currently commercial network. But as we stand here today and are recording this, we still have some notification system and cryptography that is not in our code base, and as of November 2017, that's what our development team is currently working on. By Q1 of 2018, the platform will be usable by a broad base of the industry.
Right. Okay. And then just the follow up then is, but your basic monetization is through the fee.
Yeah, that's right. So for a transaction on BlockFreight to be a valid transaction, a BlockFreight token needs to be destroyed. That's also a shim for the identity piece, or the lack thereof. That's that if a private Bitcoin key signs the transaction, that same private key can sign the BlockFreight transaction. And therefore that we know that this transaction is paid for and is associated with a specific private key. That private key can make other public keys the party to the transaction. So among and between the parties to a given transaction, they then put in place business processes with respect to whatever they've agreed upon among and between themselves.
Awesome. Thank you.
any last questions? Okay, well, we're going to wrap. Julian, thank you so much.